most of the teas out there are shelf stable. And so they have to be heated a lot longer, a lot higher temperature, and it scalps off flavor and it scalps off some of the nutrients, the natural antioxidants in the tea. So us doing, refrigerated, cold chain all the way through and cold filled, I think you'll see it just has the next premium level on our tea. So we're excited about that. But I have been completely wrong before on innovation and new product launches. I've got all kinds of products back there behind the desk that remind me of what a bad decision looks like, and I have no one to blame but myself.
Welcome to Brands for a Better World, the podcast that brings you the stories behind the people and products building a more just, healthy, and regenerative future for us all. Tune in weekly, and together, we'll learn about why these better products and brands were created, how they're helping fix broken systems, and what you can do to support them. My hope is that you'll discover some new brands to love and get some sparks of inspiration that will help you live your best life. Hi, I'm your host, Gage Mitchell, founder of Modern Species, a sustainable brand design agency helping better brands grow to scale their impact. If you like this show, please help it grow by leaving ratings and reviews on your podcast app and by sharing your favorite episodes with your friends. Maybe this will be one of them. On this episode, I'm speaking with Matt McLean, founder and chief funkle of Uncle Matt's Organic, about launching the brand 25 years ago, how the market has evolved since then, why he sold the brand to Dean Foods and then bought it back, and how and why they're expanding beyond juice. We then wrap up with a rapid round question segment. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Matt McLean with Uncle Matt's Organic. I'm the founder and chief uncle.
I love the chief uncle title as well. I always love fun titles with
why not? You gotta have fun in life.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to remember. Oh, yeah. It was Organic Valley's CEO was the CIEIO.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. That was great.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been thinking about changing my title to the Chief Evolution Officer since our company's Modern Species, and we always talk about evolution. But that would also just kind of encourage me to always support our clients and our team to constantly be evolving.
Yeah, that's good.
But anyway, happy to have another fellow funkle on the call because sure. I don't have children of my own. So that's what the title I get with my nieces and nephews is the funkle. But excited to chat with you about the business a little bit more here. Yeah. Speaking of the business, it's been 25 years now since you started Uncle Matt's Organic. So let's start at the beginning. Take us back to 1999. What was the big dream for the business? And I'm also just curious, why add uncle into the name of the business?
Yeah, sure. So, I grew up in the citrus business, fourth generation Florida citrus grower. And when I got out of college, I said, hey, I want to do anything but stay in agriculture. I really want to get out of the agriculture business. I had grown up working in the groves over the hot summers and stuff, and said, hey, I want to get on the other side of that. So I went out into sales and marketing and tried to get jobs in other areas. And so, but the interesting thing was my father had one grower. He was a German man, and he said, hey, I need some help. I've got connections over in Europe where I have bottlers that I can, I think sell Florida orange juice to, but I need somebody to go in Florida and help find good tasting quality orange juice and grapefruit juice. And so I said, hey, that sounds like a lot of fun, a lot better than, going and selling business forms or software or any kind of little job openings that I had. So I started my own business. I started an own import-export company. And I went around the state of Florida to the 35 plus juice plants and really sourced all of the product for this gentleman who had friends over in Germany. And so I would buy orange juice and grapefruit juice conventional, and we would send it over in the hull of a ship. It would arrive in Holland, and then they would truck it down in tankers or in frozen drums to these different bottling plants. And it was about 96, 97. I had one of those customers ask me for organic. He wanted organic grapefruit juice. And I had no idea about it. So that was my moment when I came back to the U.S. and I looked around in the stores and I said, geez, you know what? There's no organic Tropicana. There's no organic Simply. There's none of those available. I think this is a pretty good market opportunity, right? At every point, an entrepreneur in the beginning has that aha moment. And that was it for me. I then also wanted to know from an ag standpoint, why don't we do more organic in Florida at that time? And my grandfather was still alive. And so I sat down with him and my father, the two real agronomists in the family, and asked them about farming organic. And that was when, my granddad was basically offended. He's like, what do we mean? Can we grow organic in Florida? He just chuckled at me. He said that's how we used to do it before pesticides were invented. I was alive then, you weren't. But yeah, we absolutely can. And not only can we do it, he said, I believe there were a lot of great practices back then that were really never disproven. They were merely displaced by new technology and being synthetic fertilizers and synthetic pesticides. And so he was excited. It gave me the confidence that I think long term we could go back to farming organic, and I could supply a brand in the U.S. And so I did find some organic growers at the time to sell the grapefruit juice to the gentleman over in Germany, and I supplied that for a while. But that import-export business was thriving and doing really well. I didn't have to take the risk to start Uncle Matt's.
Right.
And it was something completely new. I had no idea about CPG, distribution, retail. I definitely didn't know cold chain. So it took me a couple years to figure it out. And that's what, by June of 1999, I had put all the pieces of the puzzle together and launched. The first item was our pulp-free orange juice, just one SKU. And I had to make 600 cases. And I needed to sell it in about 3 or 4 weeks before the date code was too short. And the co-packer was right down the road from our house here in Claremont, where I grew up just west of Orlando. And he was a friend of the family, and he sat there with me and just said, what are you doing? This is a dumb idea. Do you know how tough this business is? These retailers, they'll ask for a ton of money from you. They're going to be ruthless. If this product goes out of date code, they're going to bill you back. Like, are you really sure you want to do this? They kind of pause, like, and do you know your parents? Do your parents know what you're doing?
That's funny.
I said, yes, we're all good, Tom. Thank you for the advice. And he was giving me really good advice at the time, actually, because he was right on every point. Yeah. I mean, literally every point. He was spot on because he'd been in the business a long time, and he'd seen other people who'd come through there and co-pack with him. But I had the other business. I had the import-export business that could provide me with the income. I was not married. I had no kids. So I was completely expendable in my life at that stage. And so taking that risk was, it was the right time for me. And it was the time to really lean in and try something different. And I just felt like there was this opportunity in the U.S. And it just tied so well with my family and our ag background and everything that was my passion growing up and my family's passion. And so I just said, there's got to be a chance. I need to go ahead and try to launch this. And so there it was, 25 years ago.
And I think it's a great note that you said too about the amount of risk you were able to take at the time, right? Because I think that's something that's can be difficult about starting a business, is that if you don't have tons of money, tons of connections, all the plants, everything set up and ready to go, and distribution channels ready to rock, like, it's going to take some time to build, and it probably won't be profitable right away. So to be bold enough to start something new, especially when you're not deep in the CPG industry or whatever industry you're launching in, it's going to take some risk, and people should be aware of that. I tell new
entrepreneurs that come and love to give advice to new businesses and tell them what not to do, because I know what not to do because I failed at it. But really just to say, hey, in the beginning, how much money do you feel comfortable losing? Really kind of put a number on that. Really come to that moment with you and say, at what point do you feel like this could physically cause problems for me because I've lost that much money? And then that's it, right? So just but beyond that, you need to raise money from friends and family. And do you have people that would believe in you? But really have your threshold of, this is what I'm willing to lose. So you go into it with a plan, and if it doesn't work out, your family isn't ruined, your marriage isn't ruined, your life isn't ruined, whatever that could happen to you when you become destitute.
Right. And you mentioned too, though, that you had the import-export business that was able to keep you afloat. And I think that's something I see a lot of entrepreneurs start with, is kind of build the new business as a side hustle, quote unquote, where they don't.
I recommend that if you have it. If you're able to do it, I highly recommend doing that. It takes a lot of the pressure off.
Absolutely. One thing you mentioned too is the kind of path towards organic started with one customer asking for the organic grapefruit juice. And then you saw there weren't very many people, if anyone, in the US kind of going mainstream with organic at the time. So you thought it was an opportunity. But beyond the fact that there wasn't anyone doing it, did you know of a lot of demand? Did you know grocery stores or consumers wanted it? Or did you just feel like, hey, there's nobody doing it, so I can stand out as a differentiator?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, I saw a market opportunity because I knew if it was trending over in Europe, a lot of those food trends then come to the U.S., right? And so I thought one was a potential growth opportunity there, and nobody's doing it. But then also, I just fell in love with organic farming, the philosophy behind it. And hearing my granddad's stories of farming without pesticides and synthetic fertilizers in the past, and planting cover crops, and disking the grove, and using compost and other methods that were no longer prevalent today. And I just kind of fell in love with that story and said, geez, well, why can't we go back to that? And if we can find demand, if I thought people would be willing to purchase that, why not go there and do that? So I kind of fell in love on two sides, right? And from a business side, I really had the passion in organic and farming and the challenge that came with that and how it tied me to my roots and my family. And then on the other side was, will anybody buy it? And the supply demand, I thought there was a good opportunity for growth in the marketplace because there were no competitors. Now, in that 2-year gap, other people realized it was a good opportunity. I was behind Horizon Organic. They rolled out an orange juice. And then Pavage was a big produce company that sold organic grapes. So I was a me too. And that's why it's probably taken 25 years for me to finally, get to where I'm at today because of the Me Too status in the beginning. So I tell entrepreneurs today, go to the store when you think you have your novel idea. And if you can find it, or go on Amazon, and if you can find it, if they're pretty well established brand and they've been around for a while, you may want to think about something else, unless you really have a product that differentiates from them, or you have some other manufacturing process that makes you, have a better margin than them, and you can, beat them on price or value or somehow. But that's pretty rare.
Yeah, you need like a long enough runway till the big companies jump in and try to take your market share. Like, Annie's mac and cheese or whatever is a good example where Kraft could have easily made an organic version, but they didn't see the need to. So they gave Annie's just enough time to get in there and build enough brand reputation and natural channels that by the time Kraft launched an organic, Annie's was already established, right? So, but if you don't have a differentiator, or within months the big boys can come and take your market share, then it's going to be a challenge for you to stand
welcome
out.
to America. No profit goes unchallenged, right? That's the heart of capitalism.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm also curious, you said that first batch you had 600 cases that you had to sell within a few weeks. How did that go? Did you sell it all?
Yeah, so prior to that first run, I went around with just a mock-up carton, hey, here's my thing, and a little sales deck of, why we're the greatest thing to take a risk on and risk your career as a buyer for taking a chance on me. But I went around to Gooding Supermarket at the time, was probably 15 plus stores. They were the upscale local Central Florida supermarket, and they were fortunate enough, or I was fortunate enough, that they said, hey, I think it's a good idea. We'll bring it in. Then I found some health food stores, a great chain called Chamberlain's. They definitely were our market. They had probably 15 independent stores. And then I got a produce distributor to sign on, Albert's Organics, and they had a whole bunch of more independent stores. So I thought between those accounts that I may have a good chance to get through the 600, but I really didn't know. And I think for the first couple runs, it was pretty touch and go, like, whoa, this is close. Am I going to make it through? I'm going to have to throw product away. But there's nothing like the motivation of having a perishable product and you have the time the clock is ticking. Like, what am I doing? I'm not going on vacation. I'm working through the weekends, man. I got product I've got
Yeah.
to sell. So I was out there hustling, man. I would call everybody and anybody. There was no such thing as a warm call. They were all cold calls as fast as I could dial.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you gotta move that product as fast as possible, like you said, or else it's not usable, and you gotta throw it out, and then hope the next batch you can sell. But also, all those calls to try to sell the first batch were maybe also planting seeds to sell second, third, fourth, fifth batches.
Yeah.
Um, One thing, just for future entrepreneurs or people thinking about getting into to selling a product, how long before you actually had product to sell were you starting that sales process? Like, were you planting any seeds ahead of time? Say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this kind of product. Would you buy some if I made it? Like, did you do any of that work?
Yeah, I mean, I did a bunch of that before. I would just say, hey, I'm going to be launching, in 3 to 6 months, and always kind of keeping that timeline. That ball kept moving. If I got too many no's, and it was, oh yeah, I'll be launching,
Yeah.
3 to 6 months, 3 to 6. So yeah, when you finally built up, felt like hey, I have enough for critical mass. Then it was, hey, this is the true date we're going to be launching. So yeah, you
Nice.
do as much legwork as you can.
Yeah, that's good to know. Good advice for others. Just like get out there,
Mm-hmm.
do what you can. Know that maybe the first few batches you're not gonna sell out the whole batch, but you'll grow it over time.
Mm-hmm.
So not to skip over 25 years of hard work or anything, but let's
No,
fast
no.
forward to today for a moment. So you started this organic juice business back in 1999, as you mentioned. It's been 25 years. How has the industry changed over those years, and in what ways have you had to evolve the company to adapt to those changes?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that organic has continued to grow. Thank goodness when I bet on that in 1999 as the underlying point of differentiation in the marketplace for me, that has not crashed and burned, right? That the consumer has continued to accept organic. The retailer, more importantly, accepted the idea of organic, and so they've given every category today. It seems like just every category, almost every category, I believe, has some kind of organic option in the store. So when you walk through the supermarket, you can get anything from organic skincare to produce to dairy to obviously frozen foods, which is great. So you don't have to worry about whether or not organic is here to stay.
Right.
Now I would love it to be a larger percentage of the supermarket of each one of those categories, and some they are. Produce has really penetrated 15%. Dairy's pretty high too. So I think the great thing underlying is that organic, what I originally thought was the thing that I fell in love with, has continued to grow with the consumer and create value. So that was great. That was a nice thing to start a business off of. But other than that, I mean, gosh, CPG just changes. It changes every review cycle. Some do quarterly
Mm,
reviews, a lot of them do annual reviews, and so the whatever is on trend in food will change and cycle through. So luckily, I'm in a category, juice, orange juice. A lot has happened in that category. It has been in the decline. Our organic side has been the shining star in there, where we continue to grow and bring new customers to that category, being organic. But we've looked into more things, lemonades, punches, and now we've even launched into brewed tea.
yeah, I saw that you're launching the brewed tea. I don't know if that officially launched yet or if it's about to launch.
It's about to launch. It'll launch 4th of July in Sprouts
And
nationwide.
that's, like you said, maybe there's a general decline in juice, even if organic is kind of the shining star within that category. Why do you feel like juice is declining right now in the consumer's mind?
It started with just kind of the demonization of sugar, in particular fruit juice sugar being the same as normal sugar. And so pediatricians, our dietitians, they were telling people that fruit juice is the same as your typical high fructose corn syrup or sugar, and it's not the case, especially in orange juice. I mean, I could think maybe clarified apple or clarified grape juice concentrate probably is not near as nutrient dense as I would like in a juice. So I don't personally drink those, but not from concentrate orange juice. It's packed with, antioxidants, vitamin C, B vitamins, folic acid, a lot of good things for the body. So I think just the demonization of fruit sugar has caused fruit juices to decline over time. So you've got to find other angles and other, innovation for that set to keep the consumer there and happy.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. So sugary beverages were on the decline, hence the launch of the tea lines. But I know you've also done some other innovations like the immune lines, which was probably a great innovation kind of spinning off of the COVID pandemic. But can you talk about some of your ideas of how, obviously there's organic juice is still strong within the juice category if people are going to drink juice, but you're kind of pivoting outside of organic. But these innovations are one differentiator. What's your innovation strategy right now? And what insights are you leaning on to kind of build the future of Uncle Matt's? But also, what other ways are you trying to differentiate so that you remain the brand of choice for people still buying organic juice?
Yeah, orange juice still, our pulp-free orange juice is still our number one seller. So people by far still like a real good, tasty cup of orange juice. However, knowing that consumers have told us, hey, we're looking for some other things. What else can you provide besides just orange juice? We looked at that in functional ingredients. So orange juice is a great, it's a great elixir. It hides it can mask a lot of things that don't taste as good that are functional ingredients. Turmeric is got a real bite to it. So we added turmeric and ginger and boosted vitamin C with our orange juice, and also added probiotics to it. We were one of the first people to put probiotics in juice, especially in orange juice. We were on trend a long time ago, and now it's kind of fun to see the soda category get disrupted with prebiotics and gut health. We've been focused on gut health for a while, which is great. So doing some of those things, just functional ingredients. We have one, we added elderberry, zinc, and boosted it with C and D for an ultimate immune product. So beautiful purple color, a nice taste of orange juice, the sweet OJ, but with the tang of the elderberry. So those two have been really helpful for us, just to grab another customer base that's looking for something kind of orange juice plus, right? It has those other functional ingredients that they don't want to take supplements. They're not really into pills, or they just like the flat flavor of them. It's something that's great, and they can feel good that it's got other functional benefits to it. Yeah,
and I know the immune style shots have kind of grown in the industry over the past, 5+ years, but I've started seeing sauerkraut like juice shots, or fire water shots, or like all sorts of other kind of immune or kind of nutrient boosting, brain functional kind of shots. So you've jumped into that category as well. How's that product line growing?
Yeah, so we do have a shot category that's a takeoff. We have our Ultimate Immune, Ultimate Defense, and Ultimate Energy. And then we just recently launched an athlete shot for pre-workout that's got orange juice, beet, coconut water to give you some good benefits for nitric oxide and help with performance. So, we continue to innovate into other categories beyond just the multi-serve in the juice case. And so, that's a category that continues to grow. A little different part of the store. We also do well with it online with our DTC, because it's a small little bottle that ships a lot better than a large, heavy bottle.
Right.
But we'll continue to innovate there. It's not the lion's share of our business by any stretch, but I think it still has a good opportunity for our brand, because our customers trust us, and we like functional beverages. We've done it in the big bottles, and so to do a smaller shot just made sense.
I love connecting people and sharing resources. So let's take a pause from this conversation for a brief intro to a podcast you might be interested in.
Are you fascinated by the world of consumer startups? Are you interested in learning more about what it takes to get a company off the ground? If so, then Worldy Unboxed is the podcast for you. Join us, Aaron and Brandon, as we sit down with founders to discuss their entrepreneurial journeys and the lessons they've learned along the way. Stick around to hear Brandon and I talk about how these conversations are changing the way we are approaching our own venture, a kids' athletic shoe company. Whether you're an entrepreneur, an aspiring entrepreneur, or someone simply interested in the startup world, this podcast is for you. Listen to Worldy Unboxed on your favorite platform now. That's WORLDIE Unboxed.
And now, back to the conversation. Speaking of other beverages, right? Uncle Matt's has obviously been known for juice, but like you said, you're jumping into tea. So is there going to be a unique Uncle Matt's twist on the tea, or is it just going to be kind of like straight up tea?
Well, so a couple things there. We have three. We do a classic unsweet black tea. So we grew up in the South, right? Black teas everywhere. I personally love drinking green tea. I brew a nice little hot cup of green tea for me when I get to work every morning. And sometimes, and then at lunch, I typically would drink, just unsweet, ice cold tea, black tea. So it was easy for us to transition. We had some customers, retailers, and consumers asking for, other things, and tea was one of them that they had requested. For a while, I was hesitant to do it, kind of stay in your lane. Geez, do we really need to get over into that category? But the more I looked at it, the more I thought about it, it made sense because, one, I believed we could do a really premium version. We could truly real brew it. A lot of people use just tea concentrates, and nothing against the concentrates, but it wasn't the same premium that we were looking for. So with our new facility and the capabilities, we were able to modify the plant to be able to brew tea, which was a lot of fun. So we looked around the globe, and I was fortunate enough that my director of purchasing and also my plant manager both had a lot of tea experience with their past companies. Yeah, a lot of tea experience. So combine that with the me growing up drinking tea, and it was the perfect combination to really come up with, all right, what's our flavor profile? What regions around the globe do we want to find the best teas to make a good high-quality black tea? So we got a couple of different regions. We started with the Assam there in India. It's a really good, bold black tea, and we use that as a base, and then we've got a couple other stuff that we blend in with it for some other regions. And we think we've got a nice, premium, bold black tea, which is great. And then from there, we do a sweet version, but instead of 30 grams of cane sugar and 60% of your daily value of sugar, Uncle Matt's puts our healthier spin on it. So we lightly sweeten it with agave. So 8 grams of added sugar from agave, and then a little touch of stevia leaf extract. And it tastes like 30 grams of sweet tea, but only 8 grams of sugar, added sugar. So we believe that's going to be a really nice addition for people that are looking for a healthier, guilt-free sweet tea. And then, of course, with our background in lemonades and juices, we had to do a half and half. So same thing, sweetened lightly with agave and stevia. We think we've done a really nice job with that premium fresh brewed black tea blend with our, not from concentrate lemon juice and that sweetener. So we're really excited about it. It's going to be in the same bottle as we have, so our really nice carafe. I think it'll do dynamite with the whole suite of the family on the shelf. So
nice. Well, I'm excited to see the expansion of the product line. It's always fun for me as a foodie and a brand person to see which direction companies head, and this seems like an obvious direction. It's not like you decided to launch, Uncle Matt's whole wheat cereal or something, which would, maybe be interesting, but it would be a jump, right?
It's still in that refrigerated tea category. And I will say, the time and temperature for heat pasteurization, most of the teas out there are shelf stable. And so they have to be heated a lot longer, a lot higher temperature, and it scalps off flavor and it scalps off some of the nutrients. the natural antioxidants in the tea. So us doing, refrigerated, cold chain all the way through, and cold filled, I think you'll see it just has the next premium level on our tea. So we're excited about that. But I have been completely wrong before on innovation and new product launches. I've got all kinds of products back there behind the desk that remind me of what a bad decision looks like, and I have no one to blame but myself. So,
Well, I might ask you about some of that a little bit later when we talk about some of your biggest challenges or whatever, but that's good to know. So yeah, it's great to see the product line extending, and I do love tea, and particularly unsweet tea. I'm one of those weirdos that just likes it straight and then stringent, like the black or green teas that'll kind of like clean out your mouth and kind of refresh you, versus the sugary stuff that sticks in my mouth. So I'm excited to try
I'm a
the
big unsweet drinker.
black.
So yeah, our unsweet tea, I think you'll see it's not a watered down. I like to taste the tea, which is good.
Nice. Awesome. So I know one of the things that I'm really fascinated about with your/Uncle Matt's history is that you had the awesome opportunity, like a lot of brand founders dream of, exiting to a big company, right? And back in 2017, you sold to Dean Foods, and that could have been a nice opportunity to just ride off into the sunset and maybe do some consulting or whatever else and not dive back in. But then Dean Foods stumbled and had a bankruptcy in 2020, which made you and a group of people wonder whether you should buy the brand back and continue driving your mission. So what was that kind of whole decision process like for you in terms of deciding whether or not after how many years, like 18 years or whatever, whether or not you wanted to jump back in?
Yeah. So it was, it took a while to decide, hey, we're going to sell the company. We initially went out just to replace a minority investor that we had, a private equity group from Colorado called Greenmont. They were great partners, really good partners that were on mission with us, still friends with a bunch of them today. And they, when we went out to exit them, we realized, hey, you know what, at this size company and in that orange juice space, people didn't want to just have a minority stake. If they were going to do it, they wanted to buy the whole company or take a majority stake. And at that point, we went back and forth just on, hey, is this the right time? I mean, I didn't really start it to necessarily sell it, but faced with citrus greening disease and some other obstacles in front of us, just said, hey, you know what, that's a really good offer. We should probably just move on. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
And we exited. My wife and I stayed on with the company. They wanted us to help with the transition. We had a 3-year, luckily there was no earnout. They paid us all up front, because later, obviously, the company went bankrupt. That would not have been a good deal for us. But the Dean Foods people, they were super nice people, very professional, very hardworking. They didn't go bankrupt for lack of effort. They definitely, were hardworking people. They just got caught with a whole lot of plants. They had 70 facilities, and they had a declining market. Dairy. They were selling milk, a commodity. And they had too much debt, and it just, unfortunately, they couldn't get out of the way or close plants fast enough. So we had the opportunity to buy back the asset, which if you would have told me when we sold it, hey, what would you bet that this thing will go bankrupt from Dean Foods? Because Dean was publicly traded on NASDAQ, an $8 billion company, 17,000 employees, long history. I would have literally probably bet you everything. I don't know, 0 chance they're going to go bankrupt. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And when they went bankrupt, we were just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is pretty, I just was startled for a while. Like, wow, how does a company that big?
Right.
And here we are. And then it was at the beginning of the pandemic. I mean, it was 2020. I mean, here we are. They filed bankruptcy in November of 2019. And the bankruptcy sale was going to happen like in April, May of 2020. And I mean, I'm sitting in this corner of the office, and nobody is in the office here because, everybody worked from home. America may not make it. The world may not make it. And I'm in the corner of this office. And I'm calling some friends in the industry, and I'm just kind of in the back of my mind going, am I crazy? Like, why am I doing this? There's so much, risk involved and so much unknown. But at the end of the day, I just loved what I do. And I
Right.
still had a passion. Even when Dean Foods owned it, I still had the same passion of like, hey, I want this to work. I want organic farming to work. I want healthier solutions for people out there. And I'm still on that mission today, and it drives me today. And so at that time, I was like, I mean, why not? Why not
What's a funkle to do, right?
well, why not go? Yeah, right. Um, I don't like retirement. I'll never sit still. So it just made sense. And when I got a couple people on the phone and they said, yeah, we'd back you. Let's go do it. I didn't have to risk, all my money. I could go back in at a much smaller percentage that I felt comfortable risking. Back to my advice at the beginning of the podcast. How much would you be willing to lose? If you're good at that, then, take the risk. And so my wife and I sat down and, we really talked about it. We prayed about it. And before we knew it, my wife was waking me up at 3 a.m, and saying, hey, honey, guess what? The email's in. We won the bid. We got the company back.
Oh
And
my
I kind of
gosh.
sat up in bed and was like, wow, all right. We're going
Dive
to
back in.
we're doing this again, man. I'm back in the saddle. Let's go. So, and we haven't looked back since. It's been great. We've more than doubled the business, and just have a wonderful team. I have a great board. They're friends and on mission and patient. So, and they need to be patient because it's tumultuous out there. Orange juice
Right.
market the last 2 years have been record high prices. Great for growers if you have the fruit, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't have the fruit because of citrus greening disease and some of the problems there. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. I had the opportunity to talk to Seth Goldman right around the time that he was kind of diving back into the tea market himself after Honest was
Yeah.
getting dropped by Coca-Cola. And I think if Honest didn't keep Honest kids, he probably would have been in the same situation as you, trying to figure out like, how do I buy the brand back?
Yeah.
But since they still had Honest kids, he couldn't get Honest, but decided to launch Just Iced Tea instead. But it's
we
same kind of
have
story. The
same
passion drives
story.
you.
Same story. We actually, when that went down, we actually talked briefly with Seth about should Uncle Matt's get into the tea business then with the Honest exit, and would he be interested, or what kind of role would he take? And it was through the connection
Nice.
through Gary Hirschberg. I'm good friends
Right.
with Seth, but Gary was on his board before and an investor with him, so he just said, "Hey, why don't we have that conversation?" And like a month later, Seth, politely came back and said, "Hey, I think we're going to go after it ourselves." I said, "Good luck, man. Go for it. I'm happy for you. Go get them and cheer
Yeah.
them on all the way." And I literally had no idea. Hey, we may be in the tea business in a couple years, but it's fun. The tide will raise all boats.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like, especially with the pushback against sugary drinks and people wanting more functional, like tea is, one of the early functional beverages that has little to maybe no downside and all upsides, right? So
Yeah.
I only see, hopefully, the tea category growing, especially as a lot of people are trying to get off of the higher caffeine, like coffees or other things like that. So
Absolutely.
I think it seems like a smart play to
It's
me.
a nice low calorie, healthy beverage. And there's so many different types. I mean, we started off with a basic black tea. I have a whole lot more innovation I would love to get to, but they're much smaller, from a market segment. And, that's kind of, in the future, if the black tea does well, there's obviously a pipeline of other things we can do that'll be fun and innovative into the refrigerated tea space.
Yeah, on that note, I'd call myself a food enthusiast more than a foodie. And the reason I say that is because I like all sorts of different foods and weird fusions and experimental stuff. Whereas sometimes I feel like foodies are like, no, it's got to be the exact right cheese to go on that pasta or whatever. So for me, if I was in your shoes, I'd be like, let's make all the weird, crazy, cool juices we can think of. But at a certain point, you also have to say, well, the mainstream market is not as weird and enthusiastic about food as I am. So what's your process of like, there's tons of ideas you could pursue, but how do you validate those ideas and decide which ones to launch?
Well, first off, from a production standpoint, now that we have a facility, maybe before with co-packers, they would give you minimums, and that was really kind of your threshold. Like, hey, can I go out and get so many doors that place this thing? And kind of more or less like, hey, can we at least get 1,000 doors? Can we get 1,000 stores that would place this? And that was kind of our minimum threshold that we knew on minimum runs that we could make it work, and then you could try and grow the business from there. So we still, even though we have our own facility now, we still try and keep that same threshold. That, hey, it really needs to be something that enough of our customers and enough stores would want it right out of the gate, because we don't want to just over niche ourselves. We always, once a year, we definitely look at SKU rationalization. Do we have stuff that is underperforming that needs to, we need to get rid of? Because it is about opportunity cost. In everything that you have, whether you think, well, it's just a small little, we don't make much of it. It doesn't take much time. It does. It all adds up. And so you really need to be thinking regularly on, is this product going to scale? Is it enough to scale? And should we get into it? So we still look at, can you get 1,000 doors on something for us to make it really worth it? Can we make it at least a $1 million item? That's what we shoot for, those kind of thresholds. So we're not just launching something that's, $100,000 annually, and you're going, whoa, okay, we're in like 100 stores. What are we doing? Yeah. You'll be spinning your wheels. You're wasting your time and resources on an opportunity that's not big enough.
Yeah, I know some brands who have like dozens or hundreds of SKUs, and they're trying to figure out like, how do I grow more nationally or get it more into retail? And my advice is always, well, you're not growing with hundreds or thousands of SKUs or whatever. No. You need to figure out your hero SKUs, your, let's say, 3 to 5 SKUs that just sell better than everything else. And you lead with those, because you can't afford to scale and promote and whatever every SKU. And you don't want underperforming SKUs on shelf, because then the retailer might not trust you for future products you want to pitch them, right? So it's a challenge, I'm sure.
It's a challenge. And, everybody always wants something new, right? What do you got new? What do you got new?
Yeah.
So you always, it's that where you have to be disciplined enough to say, we do have new items, and we always have things in the pipeline that we can develop. But we have a threshold of launching that new item. And if we don't hit those thresholds, they don't ever launch.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you did mention too that you have your own facilities now. I think I remember seeing something maybe it was on Mark Samuel's show or something like that talking about how you were working with, I think, co-packers, and now you have your own facility. So what was that process or decision or transition like?
Oh, it only took 24 years to do that one. So we were using co-packers for, a long, long time. And co-packers were my friend, and they did a very good job of helping us grow the business. When COVID hit, we got stretched really thin, like most people. And it became difficult with one co-packer. So we wound up having 3 co-packers around COVID. Wow. And that with our growth as well. So we had rapid growth, and we had supply shortages and just all kinds of issues. And so we had to expand our co-packer relationship. And so we wound up having 3 different co-packers spread out across the U.S. And so now your operations team is, they're stressed to the max, and then trying to consolidate so you can ship it, so you have higher shipping costs. But at the end of the day, you have to service your customer, and if you don't, somebody else will. So you don't want to say no to orders if you can. And so it became pretty obvious that, hey, we've got enough volume and we need to consolidate into one spot. And where could that be? Strategically, we looked around the country, and, Texas made the most sense. It split the country east and west for us on refrigerated perishable freight. So now our freight is a good bit lower. We can service everybody equally, at the same time frame, which is nice. Nobody has to wait, 7 days or longer if we're going from one coast to the next. So it cut down a good portion of lead times and delivery times. But it was just finally the right time for us. We had enough volume. And that's why I tell people, hey, you can't jump into your own manufacturing if you don't have enough volume to put it through. I mean, you can just be prepared. You're going to burn through a lot of money. So you need to raise enough money or have enough money that facility is not going to be efficient and you're going to lose money on it. But we had reached that peak where it made sense to put in a facility and bottle ourselves. And it's been nice. We've been up and running since November of last year. And, it's been a real asset for us. And we continue to gain in efficiencies and all of those things that now go with, operating a facility.
Yeah, that's all really good notes. And one of them that you mentioned is, you finally had enough volume to make it work. Because I think a lot of newer brands are wondering, like, hey, should I co-pack? Should I try to figure out my own manufacturing? And
Right.
in my mind, it's like, wow, figuring out your own manufacturing, like, unless you're just some sort of renting some community kitchen space, that's, a lot of investment. So how do you make that work? And most of the companies I know that are at a smaller scale that make that work can only make it work by also co-packing for other brands, right? Because they don't have the volume. So
Correct.
For you, for that decision, was there like a target percentage of the capacity of the space? You were like, if we can at least be 60% of the space and then grow into 80% over this chunk of years or something like that. Like, was there a specific number like that you think is a good rule of thumb?
Well, we broke down the cost of it and said, hey, if we're running this many cases now and we put it through this model, does it save us money? And yes, it saved us money. Does it, help us with being more nimble? Can we serve the customer better? Could it increase our quality? A variety of different touch points, things that we really held, true to our brand, and it checked those boxes. And so for us, yes, we can continue to scale. We've got a lot more capacity there to get larger, which is great. But initially, I tell anybody, look at your cost of goods. And if you're going to get into manufacturing, you better really know what the cost of that manufacturing is going to be. Equipment's going to break. You're going to have capital costs. You're going to have repair and maintenance. So, do you really know what it takes to run your own facility?
Gotcha. Yeah, that all makes sense. I love the criteria there that it's not really about like, can we save money? But really, is this going to benefit the business and our customers and our product? So that's some good criteria there. So you mentioned a little bit ago that you've made some big mistakes with innovations. So I'm curious, whether it's innovations or other business decisions, what are like the biggest challenges that come to mind that you've faced over the 25-ish years, or even just recently, if that's easier, that then also would kind of translate to some advice you would give future you or younger you or other entrepreneurs?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest in our industry has been the citrus greening disease, just supply, getting enough high quality supply. We were the grower for up until 2015. We grew everything for Uncle Matt's right here in Florida. We had a whole separate ag team that my dad and brother ran. We had 1,500 acres, 35 plus growers that we had converted to organic. So we had a vision and a model to get to 5,000 acres and to really just continue to scale. And then the little citrus greening disease shows up and changes everything for us. It doesn't affect humans or human health or anything like that. It just solely affects the tree. It's spread by a little tiny insect, and there is no cure, conventional or organic, to date. So we had to really pivot from that. We had to go to other growing regions in North America and even around the world that are more resilient to that disease. Some of them still have the disease, but it's just not near as aggressive or prevalent because they're more arid climates. So we moved sourcing from all Florida to Texas to California and both coasts of Mexico. And that's why, moving to Dallas and then Texas made the most sense for us because our supply now, majority of it comes much closer than if we're in Florida bottling and importing it all down in there and then trucking it all back out. So supply, high quality, consistent supply has been the largest challenge we've had from day one. And initially, it was our biggest advantage because our family came from growers and we were farmers. and we were growing and converting all of our own acreage. So that model has definitely changed now. But we have great relationships with other growers in those regions. We help tell them and educate them about the research we're doing in Florida on, hey, how to combat citrus greening, some of the things organically that we see that is working or at least slowing it down, so they can implement those practices and be, more proactive than reactive like we were in Florida.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a big hurdle. And it's like one of those where maybe there's a lesson learned that you can avoid stuff like that in the future. Like you said, being proactive rather than reactive. But when you're running a business, there's stuff like a pandemic or citrus green that's going to come at you from out of nowhere and affect not just you, but the whole supply chain. Yeah. And you're going to be caught, with your pants down, so to speak, and wondering, what do we do next? And there's no way to completely avoid all those situations, but it's more how you react to those situations when you come, in my experience.
Yeah, so just always trying to think proactive, right? Strategically proactive, and go through your what if worst case scenarios in business and, by operations, by, purchasing, by manufacturing, like every little piece you got in your company, and what are those proactive worst case scenarios you can prepare for. And that'll definitely help you pivot much faster, and in some cases help you literally survive and not go out of business.
Yeah, that's what I was talking recently, I think on LinkedIn, about this concept of business is just a constant evolution, right? Because you're always going to get hit by market changes, world changes, supply chain changes, consumer changes, whatever. Just there's always going to be something that you're dealing with. And if you keep evolving, you'll continue to adapt and survive, or ideally thrive. But if you take too long to evolve, you're going to go extinct. And I think it's all part of it. Like you have to change, but how quickly you change is important too, right? If you take 5 years to figure out how to shift, you're going to go out of business in that time.
Yeah. You always have to try and challenge yourself to stay nimble, stay relevant, right? As a brand. I mean, over 25 years, it's been one of our things. Hey, how do we stay relevant? I mean, we could easily be seen as, something my parents or grandparents even drank. How does that brand stay relevant? And so, we talk about that. We work, on how to do that.
That's awesome. So speaking of staying relevant, do you have like a big 10-year vision for the future of Uncle Matt's right now?
10 years, we want to just continue to see our category grow, see organic become a bigger and bigger share of that better for you beverage space. I mean, that's really a vision for us. And then to be a household name. I mean, when you look at our household penetration, I mean, I still can go around here in my little small town of Claremont, and you do a demo and people are like, I've never heard of you. Who are you? Like, oh, man.
Really? You're like, come on.
Hi, I'm Matt, and we do this. Oh, this is great. How long have you been in business? So it's always very humbling to go do the demos out around in your community, because you'll be surprised. And then you have people that also come and say, man, my family grew up on your product, which is amazing. And it lifts you up and gives you that good energy and vibe for the day.
Right. There's always more opportunity to grow. It can be humbling sometimes, right? But I was just interviewing Rachel from Daily Harvest, and they spent the first chunk of their years growing D2C so they could have better storytelling platforms, since they were doing something a little different. But then they recently went into retail, and I was asking why. And she said, well, as much as the pandemic changed things for a short period of time, the numbers kind of went back to normal of 85% of people are shopping in retail, not necessarily online. So if we want to make the change to more sustainable agriculture, healthier food, we got to meet people where they're at. So we're going into retail to get the other 85%. So, as long as a brand might be around, or as big as they get, there's always more or less still room to grow. That makes a lot of sense. So to wrap up, just want to ask you some rapid round questions here.
Sure.
I'll just dive in. What's your favorite non-juice beverage? And I guess I should also say non-juice and non-tea, since we already discussed tea. I just want, what's something that people wouldn't expect?
Oh gosh, I make a pretty crazy smoothie every morning. And it's a mixture of
Oh,
greens I pick out of my garden. I used to have backyard chickens, so it would be, a raw egg, some protein powder, pea protein powder, and a bunch of different nutrient dense veggies and stuff that I'll throw in there with some Uncle Matt's and some other plant milk. So that would
nice.
be my other thing. My kids joke with me that, hey, Dad, when you die, we're going to bury that blender with you, and it's going to be, with a green smoothie in your hand. Uh,
So maybe there's going to be some Uncle Matt's green smoothies coming out in the future,
yeah,
product innovation or
my
something.
kids won't drink them, but Dad will show me. They may wind up in the back, the boneyard of things that don't work.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, that's funny too, because when I was talking with Alex from Genius Juice, he was talking about his favorite smoothie recipes. So we kind of swapped some notes there. But
Nice.
interesting. I've never tried adding a raw egg in the smoothie, so that's the new one on me. But I do love greens in my smoothies rather than just all fruit. So I like what you're putting down there.
Nice.
And how do you? So this is kind of funny because before I think before I even met you, my nieces and nephews were always calling me the Funkle because I'm just the one that's like willing to go to the trampoline parks or play parkour or American Ninja Warrior with them or whatever. So we were always
Fun.
doing some fun stuff. But I know at Expo West you had all your Funkle shirts on. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, how do you keep your Funkle status in your family or in the business?
Yeah. I mean, I love what I do, and we have fun doing it. I don't take myself too serious. If every day you come in and it's a job, I mean, then it
Yeah,
feels like a job, right?
right.
And it's time to do something different in life. So I love to laugh. I love to joke. And I like to encourage that. Keep it light and have fun with it.
So I get made fun of at my business all the time for dad jokes. Is that you say you like to have fun, laugh, and joke? Do you have like a particular sense of humor people know you for?
I can be sarcastic. Um, my wife likes to give me the elbow a variety of times. Like, that's too sarcastic.
That's
I
awesome.
do have some great dad jokes. My kids love those. They really love the bad dad jokes. But I keep them coming. It doesn't, just
Yeah,
because I don't get a laugh out of them the first time, the second,
right.
third dad joke usually gets something going.
Totally. Yeah, like but most of the time I'll get some eye rolls, but when I get a little giggle, I know I struck a good chord with the dad joke. So obviously you've been in the business for a long time and have given lots of amazing advice, but what's the best advice you've ever received?
I don't think I could say narrow it down just to one thing that was the best advice, because over 25 years, well, you receive a lot of different
Right.
bits of advice. From in the very beginning, different stages of your business, that is best advice at those different stages. But in the beginning, make sure you're focused on what you do best. And it sounds really basic, but I can tell you from my experience and a lot of entrepreneurs' experience, they start with, hey, I've got this one widget and it's really good. And then they put it on the shelf somewhere and it starts selling pretty well. And so now they're excited and they look at, a category next to them and a category next to them and go, gee, I think I can do this and this and this.
Hmm.
And you're going, wait a minute. No, just stay right here focused on what you're doing well and really lean into that and prove that concept as far as you can get. Now, if you if the consumer comes in and they tell you, hey, you're like us, eventually try some tea, and you have a good, you think, competitive advantage, and the customer will let you do that, then that's the timing to do that. But in the beginning, stay focused, really stay focused on what is your competitive advantage, what's the differentiation you have in that product, and lean into that. And then as it grows, you got to really manage your cash. Cash is king. Do
Hmm.
not run out of it. If you don't know finances, find somebody who does and make sure that you're meeting with them regularly to help you. Otherwise, the story's not going to end very well.
Right. Yeah. I feel like that's probably the number one killer of most startups is they get a little too far ahead of themselves on selling into more stores, doors, or,
Yep.
product line
Yep.
expansion and
Yep.
behind on the funding. And then eventually you hit a point where you run out of
Yeah.
cash and you can't get enough fast enough.
They don't really know their margin. They don't really know the cost to grow the business. And so as they're rapidly expanding, it becomes a free-for-all, and eventually you run out of the money.
Right. Makes sense. Okay, so who's an impact-driven leader you admire and why?
When I look at, that's a couple things. So if you're talking just about leadership in general, I love John Maxwell and leadership style and his books and everything. I love reading those, and I teach our employees from John Maxwell. But when you look at CPG and just kind of in our industry, and then specifically in organic and natural foods, I like the pioneers that I grew up with, Gary Hirschberg at Stonyfield, George Seaman running Organic Valley, the Stevens guy that ran Nature's Path. They stayed true to their beliefs. They didn't waver in being organic and better for you. And I have a lot of respect for that. And then also what they accomplished with their businesses and growing them. So, a lot of those pioneers, and I'm sure I left out many others that were original pioneers, but those are some that just come to the top of my mind.
Yeah, those are all great notes. Also, people that I look up to and continue to use them as examples of people who just stuck to the mission and kept going, rather than pivoting away from the mission or just giving up and leaving.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay, so final question. Since this podcast is called Brands for a Better World, what does a better world mean to you?
Yeah, I would probably, for me, it's kind of simple. Coming from the organic world and why I believe organic is better for you. So I would say, a better world looks like healthy soil, a healthy tree, healthy fruit, and then healthy people and planet. Kind of that looked like a better world for me. Start with the healthy soil and it goes from there.
I love it. And I love how it is the whole cycle, right? From taking care of the soil, which makes a healthier plant, which makes a healthier fruit, which we eat, makes us healthier. So I love that.
And it's better for the whole circle, full circle. That's kind of my better world.
Right. And at the end of the day, there's so many nice to haves for a better world, but like a food system is kind of a need to have, right? If we don't have that, we're all done
a nutrient dense, a healthy soil that is nutrient rich, that then feeds that tree, that then feeds the human body that nutrient rich product. It'll be better for everybody.
Absolutely. Love it. That's a good way to wrap up too. So I appreciate you carving out some time. It was great to finally get a chance to have this conversation and share your story with our community. And just, thank you in general for continuing going 25 years, exiting and coming back in and just sticking to the mission and continuing to grow organic. I appreciate your leadership in that regard. And again, thanks for sharing the story.
Yeah, thanks for the kind words, Gage, and appreciate the opportunity to tell my story to your listeners. Keep up the good work.
Thanks for listening. To learn more about Matt or Uncle Matt's, visit unclemats.com. If you like this show, remember to help us grow by liking, reviewing, and sharing. If you're new here, don't forget we have over 100 episodes in the archive. Some might be called Evolve CPG, but it's the same show, so dig in for more goodness. If you consider yourself an impact-driven professional, join me over at impactdriven.community, where we're supporting each other's growth as impact leaders.